Hello to you. Thank you for joining us here. I'm Neha Serene, your host. And today, all of us are going to celebrate the launch of Tracking the Tiger, a book by Bob Rupani, which takes you on this wild voyage to India's best tiger reserves. 50 days, 13 wildlife sanctuaries, and 150 pages that capture the magnificence of India's natural resources and varied wildlife. But before we embark on that wonderful expedition, I'd like to request Mr. Rohit Suri, Vice President of Jaguar Land Rover India, to join us on stage and say a few words.
Well, hello everyone. Short and simple. Land Rover is very, very pleased to be associated with the launch of Tracking the Tiger, the book by Bob Rupani. In a lot of ways, I would like to say that this association is like a perfect storm. And why a perfect storm? At one end, we have Land Rover, which embodies the spirit of adventure, all-terrain capability and performance. And the other end, we have Bob Rupani, a celebrated automotive journalist and a passionate nature and wildlife enthusiast. And somewhere around us are the tigers. So I think it's all just like a perfect storm.
Thank you, Mr. Suri, for kickstarting this evening on such a wonderful note. Now, Land Rover has always gone above and beyond the ordinary, going to extraordinary lengths to protect our planet and enrich all of our lives. Joining forces with us, as Mr. Rohit Suri just pointed out, is Bob Rupani, a man who is a veteran automotive journalist, someone who has visited more than 500 of India's protected forest areas. He's got half a dozen or so books to his name as an author, and today it's truly our privilege to partner with him on his latest book, his very first on wildlife. So without further ado, let's get Bob on stage for a tete-a-tete. Well, that reception said it all, Bob. Everyone here is very curious to know what Tracking the Tiger is all about. So tell us a little bit about the germ of inspiration. Where did that come from?
A forest. Over the last 30-odd years, I've spent a lot of time in the jungles of India. Every moment has been very rewarding, very rejuvenating. I've had some of my best times in these forests. So that's the inspiration. And since I have been rewarded so much, I thought I would share this with others and inspire them to go and also visit the lovely forests of India.
Now, Bob, you've written so many books. When you look back at this particular milestone, when you look back at Tracking the Tiger, what are you going to remember it for?
Look, every book I've done is memorable. This one is particularly special because it's on wildlife. Most people that know me as an automotive man, someone who's been, riding on automobiles for the last 30 years, editing several magazines. Few people know that I'm equally passionate about wildlife. And this being my first book of wildlife will always remain very special.
How is the DNA of Tracking the Tiger different from other wildlife books out there?
Well, for one, it's not written by a wildlife expert. I'm just a wildlife enthusiast. Most other books are written by wildlife experts. You'll find technical terms in them. Very honestly, I don't understand those. I cannot identify all the plants in a forest. I cannot identify all the species in a forest. But I love all of them. So the first thing that's different is that this is a book written by an enthusiast. What's also different is that all the photography in this book is in real time. Every photograph. Here I must mention that on this book I was assisted by Rupani Mukherjee, who in my opinion is India's #1 wildlife photographer. In fact, he's won a dozen awards. Last week he won an award. He was supposed to be here today. He's yet stuck in Nagaland on some tree trying to photograph some bird. He spoke to me yesterday and he said that bird's not yet getting into its nest. I'm not coming for this event. Okay, so I was, and he did the entire photography about the book. Some photographs I took, some Harkirat Singh took, Commander Harkirat Singh. But the major portion of the photography is done by him, and every photograph has a day, date, time. In fact, the book has a photo diary, if you can have that here, which tells you on which days and dates he was in which particular tiger reserve. Which means that you get a fair idea that if you happen to be there at that particular time, what is featured in a book is what you would have possibly seen. But what's more important and very significant is that this book was done without any special permissions. It was done, all the photographs were taken on regular paid safaris, just as a tourist would. No special permissions was sought or given. And which makes this book very real and authentic. Most other wildlife books are compilations of photographs taken over several years. There is a wildlife book I know of which released recently where there are photographs taken 20 years back. That forest doesn't exist anymore. That wildlife doesn't exist anymore in India. It's all been decimated. But those photographs are there in that book. They're compilations. And special permissions. You have people going out tracking the animals. You have this photographer sitting in the resort waiting to get a call and say, Saab, yahan aa jao. There is a tiger here. Shoot, photograph him. There is an elephant here. Photograph him. We did none of that. We stood in queues. Dhritimana has paid the fees. We have every single receipt for every safari gone in as a common tourist. And so this book is very real and authentic. And that's what I think distinguishes it from everything else.
Well, talking about special permissions, I needed special permission to peek into the book. And I can tell you one thing, that every picture tells a story. So I thought it would be a good idea to ask you to pick any one visual of your liking and tell us the story behind that.
Look, like you so correctly said, every picture tells a story. But if I had to pick one, I would pick the one of the tigress we saw in Tadoba. Can we have that picture, please? Yeah. Now, this is, again, Commander Harkirat Singh and myself in a Freelander. We arrived in Tadoba in the morning, and we decided to go for our afternoon safari in our own vehicle. Our aim to go to Tadoba for that particular shoot was to try and get a tiger with a Land Rover. And there it was. We entered the park, and soon after, right there on the tarmac road, we saw this tigress standing to the right-hand side of the road. We stopped, took a few pictures. Later, she stepped out onto the tarmac road. Milestone showing Tadoba Lake is 5 kilometers. And she walked ahead of us for 2 kilometers. Yeah? We had all the cameras with us. We had everything with us, but we are inside the vehicle. The tigress is outside. There was no way of getting a photograph with this tigress. In fact, at one point, Commander wanted to get out and walk behind the vehicle and try and take a picture with the vehicle and the tiger, but you just don't do that in a tiger reserve. So we did not get that shot. So we said, next day, let's go better prepared. And this time, we put him in an open-top vehicle separately and said, follow us. You know, I said, I'll drive the Freelander. Commander, you follow in an open vehicle, which he did. And we managed to get some good shots, like, can we have, yeah. If you see this, brilliant shot, you know, wild boars crossing the road, dirt track, Commander standing behind, Freelander there. We managed to get this. We also managed to get a lovely shot with a gaur, or the Indian bison. You know, this time Commander was driving in front, I was following him. And then we had another spectacular shot with spotted deer running up ahead of us. Yeah, that's the shot.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we got shots like this, but unfortunately, we didn't get the tiger. The day we got it, we were inside the vehicle. So that's life.
Also, I believe the foreword of the book has been written by Virginia McKenna, who is the trustee and founder of the Born Free Foundation.
Yeah, for that for me is something very special.
There's a story there too, isn't there?
It's extraordinary. It's when I was in school, class 4 or 5. I went to the St. Xavier's High School. The school in class 4 or 5 took us to Regal Cinema in Colaba to see a movie called Born Free. And, you know, for when you were in school, every outing was a picnic, and I went there. But I came back a different person. When I saw all those vistas, great vistas of Africa, the wildlife, you know, herds of zebras, elephants, everything, then Ilsa the lioness there, it was unbelievable. I think that's where my passion for wildlife was ignited. And then so many years later, when I do my first book on wildlife, who writes the foreword? It's Virginia McKenna. Unbelievable. You know, it's like a friend of mine who's also here in the audience, Rami says, and it's like coincidence is when God chooses to be anonymous.
Oh, well said. Is there something that has not been captured in the book?
Very honestly, what's not been captured are the sounds of the forest. Some of you may have heard it outside. We had a wildlife soundtrack playing. The forests are alive 24 hours of the day. Whether it's birds, insects, if there is a predator on move, you'll get a deer giver alarm call, a barking deer, followed by a cheetah, followed by a sunbird. There's sound everywhere, bees buzzing, insects, bats, owls. I mean, it's the best music you can hear anywhere. The other thing we haven't been able to capture, obviously, are the fragrances that you get in a forest. Our forests are so biodiverse and rich. You have hundreds of kinds of trees, plants, grass, flowers. Each one has its special fragrance. Just being there, you're in a scented world which takes you to another level. Then, of course, is the quality of air. It's so pure. Pure air is an endangered species today, not just the tiger.
Well, every general has an army. So tell us a little bit about your army that helped you put this book together.
Oh, there are so many of them. I just hope I don't miss out anyone. To start with Ridhiman Mukherjee. I must say this book would not have been what it is without his photographs. Then, of course, Land Rover. Without it, the book wouldn't have been there. Without them, rather. Del Semar, who is not here, who is now in UK, who was earlier posted in India. My wife, my family for being so supportive. Commander Harkirat Singh, whom I mentioned before. We cannot forget the team from Jack Printers, Kayus Wadia, Sandeep Thanawala, Anuj Thanawala. More than anyone, I'd like to thank my Mind Friday Raja. Thanks to everybody. And if I missed out on anyone, thanks to you too.
Oh, thank you, Bob, so much. It's been a wonderful chat. But to sum it up, 5 words to describe your experience.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. No, I'll actually change that to fun and wonderful, fun and wonderful, fun and wonderful.
Wonderful. And on that note, can I please request Mr. Rohit Suri to join us back on stage? Because clearly Bob has whet all of our appetites. It's now time for the big reveal. Ladies and gentlemen, Tracking the Tiger, a coffee table book that dares to inspire, that dares to ignite, that dares to be real, and that dares to go above and beyond. Let the tiger roar. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Land Rover is proud to present Tracking the Tiger.